In the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, our hero is interrogated by two army officers, one of whom tells him,
You see, over the last 2 years, the Nazis have had teams of archaeologists running around the world looking for all kinds of religious artifacts. Hitler's a nut on the subject. He's crazy. He's obsessed with the occult.
They weren't lying.
In the closing days of World War II, U.S. intelligence operatives in Berlin came across a cache of documents and artifacts belonging to the Ahnenerbe, a pseudo-scientific organization established by Heinrich Himmler, one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. Their headquarters were in Wewelsburg Castle, several rooms of which had been renovated to resemble occult ritual spaces. The walls were covered in Teutonic symbols and rites, and there was even evidence of child sacrifice. The Ahnenerbe searched for black magic relics in every country they toppled during the war, looting museums and religious institutions for everything from the Holy Grail to the Lance of Destiny, the spear that supposedly pierced the side of Christ on the cross.
Obviously, they didn't find anything that could stop the Allies from dismantling and destroying one of the most insidious political and military organizations in history. But the Americans weren't the only ones who learned of the Nazis' research. So did the Soviets, inadvertently setting off a sort of psychic arms race.
During the 1960s, the Soviets began investigating whether or not paranormal abilities might help turn the tide of the Cold War.
Might telekinesis, ESP, or parapsychology be able to do what bullets and tanks and bombs couldn't?
They tested a Russian woman who claimed to be able to move small objects and stop the hearts of animals with her mind. They also tried to use telepathy to communicate with Russian cosmonauts in orbit.
One of their most famous tests involved rabbits. So if hearing about animal cruelty is too much for you, now's the time to move on.
The Soviets inserted electrodes into the brain of a mother rabbit and then gathered her litter of kits and placed them aboard a submarine. Once the vessel was far from shore and deeply submerged, the scientists began euthanizing the newborn baby rabbits, while their colleagues back on shore monitored the mother's brainwaves to see if and how any psychic connection registered.
And it wasn't just rabbits. The Soviets also did experiments with dogs, bears, birds, insects, and even fish. It shouldn't surprise you to learn that none of this worked, and didn't help the Soviet Union get a leg up on the Americans.
When the U.S. intelligence community learned of Russia's interest in the paranormal, and that they were spending upwards of 60 million rubles on it, they quickly mobilized, pouring tens of millions of dollars into research projects like Stargate, the purpose of which was to determine if remote viewing actually worked. Put simply, a remote viewer attempts to see distant places or information using only their mind. If real, such a skill would be an invaluable asset to both intelligence units and warfighters on the ground. Subjects were asked to describe the layout of Soviet military facilities and even locate the hostages during the Iran hostage crisis. And then there was MK-Ultra, an illegal human experimentation program to test the efficacy of brainwashing and psychological torture. If you've seen the 2009 film The Men Who Stare at Goats, you know just how silly all of this was.
Obviously, none of it worked, because as fun as Stranger Things is, it's all make-believe. And the project was finally shut down and declassified in 1995. Stay curious, my friends.